bacon.
여기에서 이런 원더골이 김진수의 발끝까지 터졌어요.
The header is good, and it's the time defender John Taylor, and eventually Korea have broken the deadlock.
You're listening to the K-League United podcast, proud partner of Football Nation Radio.
Hello, 안녕하세요. Ryan Walters in the Kim Do-hoon bunker once again. Got to get it in there while we can, because I'm pretty sure we're not going to be able to do that for the rest of the season. I'm joined this week by Paul Neat.
Hello there.
And from Gwangyang, checking in on the Dragons, it's evil Pete Hampshire.
Yeah. Hello, man. Hello, how are you doing, man? Yeah, I actually checked out the stadium yesterday. I had a little nice walk down the river. It's all right, darling. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah,
Gwangyang's not bad, man. I mean, there's not a ton going on, but for a visit, oh yeah, the food's good. Mm-hmm. It's the place to be. Speaking of
Thunder Chicken last night, it's cheaper than Gimjit, you know.
Forgot about Thunder Chicken.
What's the weather like down there, Pete? Was it snowed up here yesterday?
Yeah, it snowed here, but it didn't stick, so that's all right.
That's all right.
I miss the southern winters, man. Winter is in Gwangyang for like 6 weeks, tops. Like by mid-February, you're rolling around in a spring jacket again. It's great. I miss it. But speaking of traveling and speaking of the Jola province, it wasn't enough for you to be in the official K-League documentary about the 2020 season. Pete Hampshire is yet again in another documentary. You and Matthew traveled down to Jolabukdo to talk about Idong-guk?
Yeah, so the Dakgong, which is the Jeonbuk fanzine, got in touch with Bins, actually. I think via Muyol, so it was a real K-League United affair. And they took us to a hanok, which is the traditional Korean house, and we had a nice spread first, lunch first, obviously.
Okay.
Treated us to a nice meal. Bins doesn't like fish, so when they
he's a front of him. How many banchan? How many side dishes did they put on for you?
There was a good 15. Good 15 banchan.
Yeah.
15.
Impressive.
It was a nice place, and then
Jola food, baby.
It was full by the time the interview started, and
falling asleep.
Yeah, dozing off. There was a few Idong-guk questions. They're doing a little documentary about his career. I think they might be putting it into a little festival as well, like entering it into a film festival.
Well,
and then some more general questions about Jeonbuk and Jeonju, the city, as well. And they asked me what comes to mind when I think of Jeonju, and my answer was the road to Gimje.
I don't think
they're leaving that one in.
So I don't think that'll make the cut.
No,
they were waiting for you to say bimbap. Say bimbap. Say it. Say it.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. Well, perfect tie-in, because that's something that probably didn't work for their documentary, and that's what we're here to talk about this week. We have another preseason episode, but this time we're going to be looking back on 2020, because who doesn't want to talk about 2020 more? What a year, gentlemen. Am I right? But
great year.
There were some things that went well for K-League, and that's where we're going to start, because we want a positive show. So we're going to start with the silver linings, the things that worked in 2020. Then we're going to take a little bit of a break, and we're going to do a half Room 101, a half whinging session, just whining about what didn't work in 2020. So what worked and what didn't in 2020. And we'll do kind of a hybrid Room 101. We don't have time to do the full-on debate. You know what? We'll do like all of us have been teachers at one point in time. So we'll do like the debate rules where we'll just give a rebuttal. We'll have like a 1-minute rebuttal if you want to argue against the point. So let's hop into this, gentlemen. As much as I do want to talk about Jeonju bibimbap, and I do want to know the 15 different banchans that you had there. Banchan being side dishes, like the little, a small bowl side dish, and they are done the best down south here. But Pete, we'll talk about that off air sometime. So, Paul, we're going to start with you here because I love what you chose for this one. I'm looking at your notes. I won't spoil it, but I love what you chose for this one. What worked for you in 2020?
Well, I would have to say it was the K-League 2 playoff format. Having two teams guaranteed to go up can only be a good thing. Just to explain to people, because Sangmu were going to be relegated automatically, it meant that there was no promotion relegation playoff between a K-League 1 team and a K-League 2 team. So it meant that two teams were guaranteed to win promotion from K-League 2. And so my argument is that for Korean football and the second tier to grow stronger, is we need more and different teams going from K-League 2 to K-League 1. That's a surefire way for football in this country to improve. And I just think that the way that they did the format last year is how it should be, or maybe a slightly tweaked version, perhaps. But I put together some arguments as to why this should be. So, since it was introduced in 2013, 10 different teams have won promotion from K-League 2 to K-League 1. Now, that might sound like a lot, but it actually isn't, because only one of them was doing so for the first time. That was Suwon FC in 2015. The rest have either done it more than once, like Gangwon, for example, Gwangju. And it also means that really the only chance only the big teams that have come down from K-League 1 have a realistic chance of winning promotion back to the top tier. In terms of teams that are in K-League 2 right now, half of them have never played in K-League 1. Six if you include Gimcheon, Sangmu, but you probably can't. To compare, I mean, you can't really compare to the UK, but I will just for a minute. In the championship, of the 24 teams in the championship, only 6 haven't played in the Premier League. One of them is Preston North End, but we'll move on. Barnsley have
under the bus.
Peter Hampshire's beloved Barnsley have played in the Premier League. Was it 97, 98? You went up then?
Yeah. That was our year of fame. I saw 2 games. I was too young, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. I remember John Hendry scoring at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
Right. And then even 8 teams in League One have played in the Premier League. So as a result of being able to have more teams go up, those 2 leagues, the second and third division in the UK, are stronger as a result. Now, also, if there is threat of automatic relegation in K-League 1, K-League 1 teams will then invest more. There's no reason why Incheon shouldn't be like Daegu. Mm-hmm. They have the facilities, they have everything set up. There's no reason why they shouldn't be knocking on the door for ACL. Likewise, if there's more chance of going up, K-League 2 teams will invest instead of having teams like Ansan and Bucheon going through the motions every season and loitering around 7th and 8th. They might be encouraged to have a one last push towards the top 4 if you're guaranteed to win promotion to the top flight. So, basically, what we saw were 2 one-off games played with everything on the line over those 90 minutes. This is how it should be, but with a few tweaks, neutral venues, and no strange rules about home teams winning or only needing a draw or whatever. I don't like that. Play it in a neutral venue, make it fair, and you have 4 teams instead of just 3, second, third, fourth, and fifth, and then everybody wins. You get more teams in K-League 1, and eventually, when teams yo-yo up and down, because they will, you're going to have more varied teams in K-League 1. Teams like Anyang, the citizen clubs, are going to benefit from more income, and it's only going to be a good thing. So that's my argument.
I love almost all of it. The only thing that I would tweak is I would say I do like the idea of 4 teams being in as well. First place team automatically goes up, then second, third, fourth, fifth get into the playoffs. You could argue that's too many teams getting in the playoffs, but I don't care because I would go in on the side of fun. And also, if we're talking about 5th place being involved, then almost every single team can be involved in the playoff hunt. But the thing that I would change is to have the final in a neutral venue, which I do love. And then I would say the first round, if you got 4 teams in, first versus fourth, and second versus third, the higher ranked team deserves to have home field advantage for one game, I think. I do agree. Let's get rid of this. Like, the higher ranked team just wins. I've argued in favor of it in the past because it puts emphasis on the regular season, but it doesn't create entertaining football. I think the home team a lot of times will just bunker and they know that a draw will win, so it's not overly entertaining. We saw that in the K2 playoffs this year in a lot of ways. So I think get rid of that. Go straight to pens, if to save legs, that's fine, especially in the opening round, as it would be. I think in the K2 final, if they're not going on to play a K1 team, then I think you have extra time as is standard. But yeah, I agree. Drop that. But man, yeah, like you actually win something in this version, like we can have a trophy that's handed out to this playoff winner. You can make it an event. Whereas every year prior to this, if you quote unquote win the K2 playoff, then your reward is facing a team in the division above you that is clinging on to second to last place. I just hate that.
Yeah, and obviously over 2 legs, of course the bigger team is going to win. More often than not, it probably has over the last 7 years or whatever. So yeah, it has to go. And I just think
2-leg crap has to go.
It has to go. And yeah, I do agree with you about second versus fifth, third versus fourth. The team who finishes high and gets home advantage. Yeah, because I mean that time of year in Korea it is cold. You don't want to add more games to it. So that I do agree with. But yeah, just make it better, please.
Yeah, and that wouldn't be hard to do. Wouldn't be hard to do.
What stands out to me from Paul's argument there is the teams like Anyang and Bucheon, because as a Barnsley fan, without the playoffs, a team on a similar level in our league to Anyang, where we're just hovering around the bottom area, without the playoffs, then we wouldn't have had half of our memories of the past 20 years, because the playoff games have been the end of season excitement and the best memories for so many fans in England. I know it's taken a European view of it, but so many good memories come from playoff games. So to extend it can only be a good thing.
All good memories come from playoff games, Pete. That's why we need playoffs across the league. I mean, especially with Ilyachenko signing for Jumbuk. Let's just get a playoff and see if somebody can beat them once. But anyway, we'll talk about that another time. I'm not going on to playoffs now. All right, well, Pete, yeah, I like a lot of what you're saying there as well. And I think we'll just stick with you here. Let's move on to what worked for you in 2020. And it kind of relates, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, 2020, I mean, at the start of the season, we put ourselves out there with our predictions. And a lot of us did put Sangju Sangmu, the military side, up in the top 4. And that they finished 4th at the end, which is their highest ever finished in K-League 1. And my point is, having a military side in the professional league is worthwhile, and 2020 showed that. Obviously, next year they're a different club. They're Gimcheon Sangmu, and they'll be in their 2nd division. But if you look at Sangju last season, finishing 4th, they were competitive throughout, even with their squad change in the summer, which is going to happen to them every year with the nature of the military contracts. They had such a solid defence with 8 1-0 wins, and very defensively organised. And lots of players, big K-League names, they've benefited from playing at that military side, like Kang Sang-woo, Han Suk-jong, Lee Chang-gun, especially Kang Sang-woo. I mean, he's going to be one of the big names to watch next season. And some of those have really improved at Sangju Sangmu. It's not, I think when you look at the league from an outside perspective, like before I moved back to Korea, you think, oh, Sangju, it's just an extra team that nobody really cares about because you don't see too much about them. But they've really developed over the last few years into a team to watch. And also it's become beneficial for players getting the national service out of the way in a different way to having to win a medal, and the pressure of winning a medal at a continental tournament or an Olympics. So you're seeing players like Oh Se-hoon, and now he's finishing his time at Sangju in the next year, and he'll be free to what looks like have a great career. Obviously, there are caveats to my argument. One is that I'd say Kim Tae-wan has been fantastic for them, and without him at the helm, you'd wonder, would they be as successful? Would they have that continuity that he's provided? And also, in 2020, they were going down no matter what and becoming Gimcheon Sangmu. But to that, I would say, even in the K2, it's still a useful thing to have them as a professional club, because if you look at 2015, the last season in the K2, they had players like Lee Young, Park Ki-dong, Lee Sung-gi, Kang Min-soo, and they've all gone to feature regularly still in the top league. So it's not a hindrance.
I cannot believe you started the Park Ki-dong for that one.
I was just looking at the squad list from the final game from 2015. But yeah, as we always say on this podcast, maybe not possible without the quality of Kim Tae-wan.
Yeah.
But what I would say is that about the army team is that now there's only one, whereas before we had Asan or Ansan. There's those different variations. If they're in K League 2, they cannot win promotion. It's just not fair. If there's only one team that has the monopoly of all the good players who are wanting to go on military service, it's like a dream team. It's like an all-stars team. This Gimcheon team now, it's ridiculous. I mean, it would probably still finish in the top 4 in K League 1. Honestly, it's probably got even stronger because they have the pick of all the players who want to go on military service. Now they have the luxury of choosing the absolute very best. And it means, because I'm assuming in the 2021 season, when the playoff format goes back to the way it was, there's only going to be one automatic promotion spot, and that'll be Gimcheon. And then after that, you have Busan, Daejeon, loads of teams all battling out for John and Dragons, all battling it out for the scraps, basically. So I just think, yes, it is great, and it is a good way for young players who have a bright future, like Also Hoon, who you just mentioned, Pete, to get it out of the way and then really begin their careers. But in terms of the team itself, they should not be allowed to win promotion back to K League 1.
See, I like the idea of them being in K League 1 because then it's not so much of a punishment doing your military service. Because like if you can stay in the first division, like Oh Se-hoon, or like let's keep using him as an example because he was with Asan as like one of their first non-military players, non-police players, and he was on that team. But then he made the jump to the first division with Sangju while doing his military service. And that's kind of a promotion of sorts for him, moving up a division. And also, I just like the idea that if you're going to do your military service, you don't necessarily have to drop down a division. I mean, to me, I would really like look, we could use more teams. I would like to see another military service club. Also, I miss the name Police as a team name because I think it's awesome. Ansan Police was a sweet team name, so let's get that back. Oh, loved it.
I don't know. I don't think going down to K League 2 is a big deal because what's the alternative? You're going to go and play K3 or play in K4. Look at like Iki J was playing for the baggage handlers. I'm not sure that is their official nickname at Gimpo, but you know, like
it should be.
It should be, yeah.
There are worse
I don't think playing in K League 1 or K League 2. If you can get your military service done and still play in K League 1 or K League 2, I don't think it really matters that much. Playing in K3 on an AstroTurf pitch, not so much.
Yeah. I mean, again, for me, I would like to see both teams back because I don't think Sangju is going to get relegated, or Gimcheon now. That's going to take a while. I don't think they're going to get relegated once they come back up with the squad that they can have. And then really, to me, and this is where a lot of the teams are moving anyway, if we have one in the second division especially, then I think there should be an age limit. Like there should be an age cap on we'll call it the police team. Sure, fine. What Ansan/Asan used to be. I think that's a strictly U23 team. And then you just focus on youth development for them. And then Sangmu becomes the full-on military team where anybody of any age can go. That would be ideal to me. But I agree, Pete, with the overall point that we should have these teams around. But I'm rambling on to your point, which is eating into the time that I had for mine. But mine is a brief one. So that's why I've chimed in on your guys, because to me, the thing that went really well in 2020 was the fact that we were able to play football here in Korea. And that's the COVID-19 response from the league. Again, we've talked about this all year. A lot of it comes down to how the government has handled things here, but it's not an accident that K-League was one of the first leagues up and running in the world. Not the first. We're not forgetting about Tajikistan and all the other leagues that were going around that time, but it was one of the first major leagues, the first major league major in quotes, whatever. I'm going to stop with the disclaimers. It was awesome that we got up and running when we did, and that's because of how the clubs handled this. It's how the league handled it. Back in August, actually in May, before the league started, every single team had all staff and players tested. Almost 1,200 COVID tests at the beginning of the season, all came back negative. And we had one player this entire season test positive for COVID. And that's because they went and had a little party.
And they're brainless. And I know who it is, but I can't say.
Yeah, we won't throw anybody under the bus. It was a second division player. Anyway, but that wasn't team related. And then there wasn't an outbreak at the team. I mean, we know it was Daejeon. We reported on this. And there wasn't an outbreak at Daejeon even after that. And the league immediately said, Daejeon's not playing for 2 weeks, but the league is going to resume. We didn't have an outbreak of cases. We didn't have to go into a bubble either. I think that's one of the big things here. Like MLS, they had a very successful resumption of the league, but they had to go into a bubble, and 2 teams couldn't make it there because they had outbreaks on their teams. Once they were in Orlando, once they were in that bubble, everything was fine. But that's really restricting on the players, you know, and we saw this with Champions League as well. Being in that bubble for so long, that's not great for the mentality. That's not great for these players who have family, who also want to have a life outside of football. You know, I mean, I think all of us that haven't been lucky enough to play are like, oh, they're living the dream anyway. But no, man, living in a hotel for months and months on end, not being able to leave, not necessarily deciding what you're going to be able to eat, all of that has a massive effect on people. And K-League didn't have to do that. Like, we didn't have to have players in lockdown like that. Sure, at Daegu at one point, yes, because Daegu was the central hub of the outbreak here in Korea for a little while. But that wasn't even the full season. Like, I just absolutely props to everybody involved on this at every single club and league-wide, because it was handled tremendously. And I think the big thing for me is that the players largely had the freedom to go about their lives as much as any of us did in 2020, you know, as much as any of us did here in Korea, which was more than a lot of places. But I think playing behind closed doors wasn't ideal, but it got the league back up and running. It got eyes on the league in ways that we've never seen before. It was just a tremendously well done response to a global pandemic. And again, kudos to everybody involved in all of the testing standards and everything else. That luckily we didn't have to get the nose tests when we were going in, but we had temperature checks and a bunch of other things just getting into the media end, and everything was done extremely well. And that's one other thing. FC Seoul's got that sweet camera where you can just have your temperature taken and everything. Don't have to touch anything. Love it. Love it. Get me more of those. But yeah, that's my thing for 2020 is that the COVID response was just fantastic.
Yeah, can't argue with that, really, can we?
Yeah, and from a media side of it, going into the grounds, obviously we'd love to have fans there, but
yeah,
the only real difference I noticed was less mixed zone interviews. There was still manager conference.
Yeah, I missed having the mixed zone interviews because it was, you know, if I was going into the stands and having a beer, obviously that's what I was looking forward to doing. But if I was sitting in the media area, it was going into the mix zone afterwards. That's what I used to look forward to. But hopefully we'll have those back eventually. I don't think we'll have them back in 2021. Certainly not in the first half. Not until the vaccine's been completely rolled out anyway. But yeah, you're right.
I think there's a way we could get them in, but I think the players don't really mind not having it, so that's why we don't have them.
Yeah.
But that just means we got to go to press conferences more. Work on the Korean skills. All right. That's going to be it for the positives. That's it. We're diving in. We're going in 2-footed on a bunch of crap in the second segment. But yeah, we'll be right back.
FNR is a revolutionary football-dedicated digital platform, the first of its kind in Australia. It provides a 24/7 live online radio platform experience, podcast hub, and acts as a content provider for TV, radio, and digital. Having reached millions of listeners and football fans since launching, FNR is accessible worldwide via its website or app, providing a platform to discuss, debate, and celebrate the world game. We are your voice of football, FNR Football Nation Radio.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Walters, joined this week by Paul Neat.
Hello.
And Pete Hampshire.
Hello.
Paul, this is becoming a normal thing, these daylight hour podcasts. I feel like you and I went like a year without being on the same podcast together.
I know, yeah, I quite like it, to be honest. Have a nice cup of tea and a nice little chat about K-League. Lovely.
Little afternoon chat. Yeah, maybe this will be the new time. I'm sure we'll get a ton of live streams if we're going at lunchtime midweek. That's when the people want to be watching. Anyway, that wouldn't work. And what a perfect transition. You know what? It's preseason for me as well. I need to work on my transition game. It'll be fine once the ball is kicked. I'll be there. But anyway, Paul, we're having you start this segment again because I thoroughly agreed with what you had that worked, and oh baby, do I agree with you on what didn't work. And also, we're going to call this is going to be a half Room 101. And for those that don't know, Room 101, as I've been educated on in recent years, is a reference to the fantastic book and fantastic year, 1984. Not that anybody on this podcast may have been born that year. Tigers won the World Series as well. No big deal. Anyway, if you don't like something, you're going to put it into Room 101, and that's where things don't necessarily escape. So, Paul, what are you going to be arguing to put into Room 101?
I feel like my choice will open up some old wounds, but it has to be VAR. I'm going to have to put it in Room 101 after what happened in the playoffs, or at least put referee Kim Jong-un in there instead. Because goodness me, I've still not recovered from that. Emotionally, I've not bounced back. I don't think I ever will, to be honest with you. So I was watching the match at work because it was obviously I work evenings, and there was some confusion about when Bruno Vial's goal went in against, who was it? Gwangyang, and there was a bit of confusion. Was it given? Was it not? And initially it looked like it was given, and I was hugging one of the reporters at work, dancing. And then my heart was broken because it was disallowed. And yeah, so as much as the format of the playoffs was a success, I just think that the VAR made an absolute mess of it. It really overshadowed what the good was from last season. So I'm going to have to reference an article that I wrote at the time, VAR, what is it good for? Now, referee Kim Jong-un spent 2 minutes and 37 seconds watching the replay and zoomed in on the incident no fewer than, and I'm not joking, 28 times. 28.
Clear and obvious, baby.
If those are the rule, if that's the criteria of how to use VAR, then clearly it isn't working. But I'll get to that in a little bit. So the goal was disallowed, and the score remained 1-1. And Daejeon were knocked out because of the home team only needing a draw rule. That was that. And then in the final, I was being perhaps a bit facetious when I sent out a tweet at 85 minutes saying that this game is just ready to be ruined by VAR, and it did deep into stoppage time, and it did. Now, whether the incident was a foul or not,
it wasn't.
It was very strange. It was very weak, but that incident was looked at 8 times over a span of 36 seconds, which is not too bad, I admit. However, the game carried on for 48 seconds more. In fact, that Gwangyang went up the other end and very nearly scored themselves. They earned a corner, and then it got brought back.
Yeah,
and then can you imagine if you are a Gwangyang fan, you're on the cusp of returning to K-League One, literally seconds away, and then that happens. It was just a farce. It was not a foul, but even if it was, there's too much time elapsed between the so-called incident and the decision being made. It was a disgrace. And like I said just a minute ago, if clear and obvious is the interpretation of the rule, if that still is the case, then that was not a situation where it needed to be used. It was an absolute joke. And unless we can use it properly, VAR has to go. It has to go into Room 101. It's ruining football, not just in the K-League, but as a fan, you're just not safe. You just don't know. You can never really know that you can celebrate your team scoring, because you just never know. It's like swimming in shark-infested waters. It's like something's going to come and get you. The VAR will, okay, and then we see that stupid gesture, and it's just, oh, here we go. And then they're going to spend 5 minutes waiting for some incompetent referee to sort of try and think, okay, I've embarrassed myself enough already because I'm watching it 28 times. How can I spin it so that, he's been very shrewd there. He's noticed that one player lightly touched the person's arm and therefore it's a foul or something. It's just, yeah. I'm going to stop now because I'm getting ranty, but that is my argument.
Yeah.
Arguments as to why VAR should go into room 101.
Yeah, I think as it stands, it has to go. I don't have faith that it'll be taken out of the game because I think the powers that be want it in there too much, which is a shame. But there have been a lot of great ideas that came up on Twitter when we were talking about this at the time, which again, going back to what I said on the podcast after this playoff, what happens if Gwangyang score that goal? And then that everything has to. So then you're not only taking that moment from them, you're literally just taking the game from them. And Gwangyang could, and you could argue, should have scored on that play, which would have been absurd. And this is the kind of crap that's got to stop. I think. Sorry,
if Park Gi-dong was faster, because it was Park Gi-dong who got through and tried to have a shot. If he was a faster player, they probably would have scored then.
Yeah, 100%. And then you're talking about chalking off a 2-0 lead in a match that would have seen them promoted. That's not okay. And I think the big thing for me, I would love to see it taken out of the field officials' hands. Again, we've talked about this before. In the NHL, they call it a war room. There's a room in Toronto, which is where the NHL is hubbed. Here it would be in Seoul. We even have a media center. There's already one built. There are just referees there watching the game. They watch the replays. They send the final decision. The ref on field doesn't have a say. And then, lo and behold, I think you'd see the refs making actual decisions. And I did censor myself for the children-friendly version there. Because that, to me, that's what's gone wrong. Because we saw this in K2. We saw this in the playoffs. Maybe that is a foul, but the refs aren't calling it in K-League right now. And I don't think they're doing it league-wide. They aren't calling these things because they know the eye in the sky's got their back. I want refs to be able to make the decisions that they've made throughout time and trust their gut and trust their decisions. And then if it doesn't go that way, okay, fine. But I think VAR has to be taken out of their hands. There has to be a time limit on it. And that's the way that it's going to go. If it doesn't get called on the field, then damn it, it doesn't get called. Like you're saying, Paul, we're talking about almost a full minute of play here. You don't know. There's no going back. That's not the way that it should work. I know this came up in the ACL final with Ulsan not getting the handball call. That was so obvious. But to me, if VAR isn't a thing, then the ref actually calls that handball and isn't just relying on VAR. Sorry, go ahead, Pete, because I'm also ranting.
The point of the bringing in the VAR to start with is to eradicate the human errors, but clearly with checking the footage 28 times in the Daejeon match, then some human emotions have got to the referee anyway, so it doesn't make too much difference.
Yeah, because then you're trying to find an error. If you haven't seen it in the first 5 replays, there probably wasn't one. So then now he's using... if you have to use 4 or 5 different camera angles and zoom in, you don't have that luxury in real time with your own 2 eyes. So it can't be clear or obvious. But then again, maybe I've got that wrong if that is the
that's it.
The criteria.
That's the criteria. Yeah. I don't.
It really was. But sorry, I'm ranting.
That's because we all hate VAR and it's ruining the game. I don't think there's anybody. I don't know of anybody that isn't an admin that argues in favor of VAR. I mean, to me, I'm still of the conspiracy theory that it's just to eventually get commercials into the game.
I won't be surprised.
Yeah, because it takes long enough, doesn't it? Anyway, I don't think anybody's going to argue on the other side of that. Pete, are you going to argue in favor of VAR?
No, I'll stick with you two on that one.
Okay, so we're putting that in room 101. We're filling that room with gasoline, lighting a torch, and just closing and locking that door. And I don't care how loud VAR screams, it's not coming out.
Good.
Playing a lot of D&D lately. Don't worry, our campaign's not that dark. Anyway, that's for a different podcast. Dungeons and Dragons and K-League Weekly.
That
Big
sounds
list-
terrible.
Big listenership. Everybody wants that one.
That's
Anyway,
even more niche than our podcast.
that I think
That's saying something.
that would mainly just be me talking to myself. I'm pretty sure, unless there are more D&D fans out there.
You never know.
Touch base on Twitter. Let's talk about it. Anyway, Pete, save me from this conversation, or don't. If you want to play D&D, let me know. But Pete, what are you putting into Room 101?
I'll politely decline, thank you. So obviously in the 2020, we saw a fantastic boost in interest in the K-League in May, largely because other leagues around the world weren't underway. But I feel like it was an opportunity missed, especially by Europe media outlets and television companies to show a league that's of a good quality. Obviously, it's not as high as the Premier League or the Bundesliga, etc. But my friends and people I've spoken to in media, they enjoyed watching that Jeonbuk Suwon game, and then suddenly it's a lot more difficult to stream the following matches. So I feel European coverage snobbery is my entry for Room 101, and that platforms missed out where they could have grown a cult interest at a time where football had stopped completely for 2 months, especially in the UK. Looking back at, I'm sure Paul watched this program as well in the 90s, Football Italia on Channel 4.
Yes.
As a child, obviously didn't have in-depth knowledge about Italian football or even the clubs or the towns, but it became a niche but hardcore following of Italian football in the 90s among a certain generation. And for me personally, my first shirt wasn't a Barnsley shirt, it was a Totti shirt.
Excellent.
What?
As a revelation on the podcast.
Look at that. K-League Confessions with Peter Hampshire.
Yeah. And I still remember viewing it on a Sunday morning, even though I've got no connection to Italy personally. And I don't understand why. I'm sure it wouldn't have been expensive for media companies to buy the rights to broadcast more K-League, especially only online streaming like the BBC did for the Jeonbuk game. I don't understand why they couldn't have tried to build up a bit of a niche following. We saw things like Banana Bread get a big following during the lockdowns in the UK. Why couldn't K-League have become that niche interest? I'd say one thing that probably
follow the yellows like Gwangyang.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
One thing that didn't help was probably the first game wasn't the best entertaining spectacle. It was
and a 40-year-old man scored the winner, which is he's a legend. But I mean, we know that. But people watching from outside, it's like, wait, is that the guy who played for Middlesbrough 15 years ago? Mm-hmm. And it's like, God, he's still playing, and he scored the only goal in what's supposed to be like the league champions against the FA Cup winners. That probably wasn't the greatest thing. I mean, the game itself wasn't exactly a classic, but the fact that he scored the winner was good for K-League in some respects, but for the outside world watching, it was a bit, okay. If only somebody else could have scored that.
Yeah, I would have he can score the winner in a 2-1 or 3-2 match, and it would have been fine by me. But yeah.
It was a very slow-paced game, wasn't it? Which was because of the disrupted pre-season. But then games following that, if we'd have had that Daegu 4, Gwangju 6, imagine that. I mean, surely that would have boosted people's watching of the league.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an area where it actually, you know what, it ties into what I'm going to go into. So I won't touch it yet. I won't touch it. Paul, are you going to argue against this, or are we putting this in Room 101?
No, I can't argue with it at all. Yeah, it should go into Room 101 because why not? There's been a fascinating. Well, there certainly was when all the big names started going over to the Chinese Super League. There was a morbid fascination in the UK around the Chinese Super League. Even Sky Sports started to air the games live. Chinese Super League, I think we probably would agree. We are biased here, but we would probably say that K-League is a better standard slightly than the Chinese Super League. Okay, they do have or had players like Hulk and Oscar, but I think the K-League is better. So why not? It's on at a similar time, time difference and stuff like that. I mean, okay, a game at 3 p.m. in Korea on a Saturday, the time difference with the UK, you tell me you got anything better on at that time slot?
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? You want to have some live football? Why not? So yeah, I totally agree with you, Peter. Missed opportunity, and hopefully with more. I think we've learned that there are going to be a few more overseas broadcasters involved next year, or sorry, this season. So hopefully there are countries out there that want to take up the opportunity and broadcast matches from the K League.
Yeah, and if you need anybody to host a match of the day style show, just
Look no further.
Let us know. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I'm going to agree with you, and we'll put that one in room 101 as well. Moving on to mine here, because our half-hour podcasts always go a little longer than half hour. Our preseason ones end up being full episodes, but whatever. Anyway, what didn't work? Well, the ASEAN player quota didn't work this year. This past year, I should say. Nobody took advantage of it, which is tremendously disheartening. I think a lot of that hopefully had to do with the pandemic, but we saw a lot of player movement outside of that. So I don't think that's what it was. I think this is utterly foolish for zero teams to be taking advantage of this rule. If the bigger teams want to fill up their roster quota with European players, with Brazilian players, and challenge for a title, I get that. I also do honestly think that there are some Southeast Asian players that could help with a title push. Again, all we need to do is look across the pond to K-League, or to J-League rather. There are plenty of Thai players doing really wonderful things over there. And that's just Thailand. That's not the entire region. But I would never put that into room 101. So I'll just say that I hope some of the mid-table teams in K1, and definitely literally every single team in K-League 2 should be looking at this roster rule this year, because it's just absurd not to take advantage of it. But I would never put that into room 101. What I am going to put into room 101 is just about every single team's marketing department. That's right. Even Daegu FC is getting thrown under the bus here. They do everything well domestically. They're maybe the best marketed team domestically. Love everything they're doing here. But
apart from size, doesn't matter.
No, I loved that. I love it.
Come on.
I love it.
That's poor. They should have asked somebody. Does this sound stupid? Yes.
They did it on. See, this is the thing. They did that on purpose. They knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing.
No, not buying that.
Unlike certain teams that have penetrate as their slogan for 2021.
The gift I replied to that is the most popular tweet I've ever had, I think. So many likes.
Yeah, Shimizu S. Pulse has decided to go with penetrate. I think, as I said on Twitter, just so their ultras can be known as Penetration Nation. So that's what you got to go with there. But anyway, on to actual marketing here. And I don't love how corporate I sound with the things that I've picked out here. But to me, this is disheartening that none of the teams, literally not one, really did anything to try to target themselves for an international audience. Not one K-League team is up and running on Twitter, which is a largely English-speaking platform here in Korea. It's not really used by many native Korean speakers. So that would have been a great way to reach out. I would also say it's probably the platform for football internationally. I mean, that's where we follow the games live. That's where a lot of games are live streamed. And we had 5 million people watch that game. That opening game was viewed by 5 million people. 3.5 million on Twitter alone. And then every single team in the league saw that and thought, no opportunity to be had there. We don't have money to pay somebody to run one social media account. And the thing is, like, so many of the teams already have their graphics in English. When there's a goal scored, it has goal in English. It has the player name in English and then in Hangul as well. All of their graphics are already made for this. All you need to do is just interact, but nobody did it. Nobody has an ability to buy their kit internationally outside of Jumbook, and I think maybe FC Seoul. That's not good enough. There was such an opportunity here, and we all knew this. Every single team knew this. It would not have taken a lot for any of them to try to target an international audience at all. At all. I mean, we saw this kind of at the end of the year. Ulsan just were crowned champions of Asia. They did nothing to try to get in an international audience. I think they set up an event in Iran, I think, maybe an online thing to try to get those that didn't like Persepolis on their side. That's a fading thing. That's going to go away almost immediately. Whereas, like, I was just looking at ACL stuff recently, and when Al Hilal won, they had a police barricade, a motorcade driving them to a stadium where they came out to pyrotechnics and a stadium full of people cheering them on for winning the exact same trophy that Ulsan just won. And Pete, as you've said in the past, Ulsan were crowned the kings of Asia. You went to work on Monday and people were like, did you see Sun Heung-min had a really great through ball? Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah,
Like,
that's so true. I'm
Sonny's
enjoying the
world
break
class.
from school at the minute, and now he stopped scoring. Son Heung-min, how typical is.
You know,
I mean-
actually, it's funny to say that about Ulsan and stuff, because at work, the reporter that I sit next to, her family are from Ulsan. So I was like, "Oh, you're gonna watch the game tonight? What game?" And then on the Monday after Ulsan had won, I was like, "Oh, your dad will be very happy. Ulsan won the Champions League. Ulsan have a team."
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, that is a perfect failing of marketing here. I mean, Paul, you and I live in Seoul. How many Subway ads have you seen for either of the two K-League teams here?
None.
None.
I mean, if you're on line 6, which is where Seoul World Cup Stadium is, there's sometimes a video on the screen, but not very often. And it's only if you go up that direction. It's only when you're heading up towards the stadium, which chances are you're already on the way to the game anyway. So, but yeah, you're
Busan
right.
Park, I'll give them credit. When you go into Busan Station, either the bus station or the train station, they have ads there. This is the bare minimum, and so many of the teams aren't doing this. And then again, we had a massive opportunity here to get international fans involved, which, Pete, I think to your point, I don't think there's ever really going to be a top-down approach in the modern day of a TV network or an online streaming platform being like, we're going to pick this league and we're going to make people like it. It's got to go the other way around. There has to be interest there. And in order to drum up that interest, teams have to care. Whereas we've got Jeonbuk, who have won ACL, who were on the global stage in that. They had a Twitter account with 50,000 plus followers, and they deleted it. They just got rid of it. And it just baffles my mind that not one team in this league, not one of 22 teams, wants to look outside of Korean borders to market themselves in a global game. It is just such an utter and complete failing.
On the subject of K-League clubs on their Twitter accounts, remember when Gwangyang moved into their new stadium, and I said to you, Ryan, look, Gwangju have got a advertising board with their Twitter handle on it. I was like, that's excellent. That means they're going to bring it back. And you're like, no, I think that's a very old board. and then lo and behold, the next week it was their Instagram one instead. I was like, but surely someone must have thought, we do have a Twitter account. Maybe we should use it. No, they just thought, you know what? Let's just throw it away. Let's burn it or whatever they did with it, because it wasn't there the following week or the following home game. Yeah, Ryan, I 100% agree with you, and I want to go just touch on the shirts thing. Like people wanted to have.
Oh my goodness!
I am a person who likes to collect football shirts for no apparent reason. Teams that I've got no affiliation to, if it's a nice shirt, I'll buy it.
Mm-hmm.
If you are just starting to follow a new league, one of the surefire ways to sort of help you become a fan of this team in some way is to buy the shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you wear it around the house. You go out. You say, "Oh, what shirt's that? Oh, this is Dago FC. Where's that? Oh, it's in K League. Oh, yeah, you can watch it on BBC now. You can watch it on whatever. You know, right? If you make it for any product, if you make it difficult for people to try and buy it, they just won't do it. They'll give up. Why on earth is there not? Wasn't there a connection between international broadcasting, international fans? They might want merch. Why was that never ever thought about?
KBO did it. KBO games were on ESPN, and they had a broadcast.
Exactly.
They had an international shop. They were ready to go. Maybe this doesn't change the entire landscape, but you've got to start somewhere. And none of these teams are starting anywhere. It is just absolutely absurd to me that not one marketing department has thought, what if we tried to market ourselves internationally? Liverpool is super popular here in Korea. They're a real long way from these shores, and yet somehow that team has become popular. Imagine that.
Let me just say one more thing about this as well. Is Dejon, when they were taken over by Hana Financial Group, one of the things that they said was that they want to become a global football club. And by that, they want to be in the ACL and a team that is recognized, at least in the continent or around the world. Fine. That's great. Their Facebook name is still only in Hangul.
Yeah.
How are you going to become a global name if only people from one country can read and search for you on Facebook? It's bizarre. All right, it's a Korean club. It should be in Hangul, but you should have English there as well. Everybody else does it. Bizarre.
Yeah, this is one Yuri Levi of Babagol and of great Twitter fame brought this up about the league not being overly marketable. The player names being in English on the back of the kits might not be a bad idea. And this is one, Daegu does this. I found it really strange at the time, so Leland also does it, but on an international broadcast, and we see this every time when the goals of the round or the best goals of the month go out, and it's like, oh, who had the best one? Well, not everybody can read Hangul. And so those videos, and then like even if you're trying to watch the game, like, oh, this number 7's really good. That's someone. Like, if somebody can't read Hangul, which I think we just kind of forget about because it's so second nature for those of us that live here, that's also not helping market internationally. But then again, it's Korean league. I do love the player names being in Korean on the back, so I don't really know where I weigh in on that one. But
I do agree with you. The games that are broadcasted internationally, why not? Why not put, or at least just when the graphics come up on screen, have them in English and in Korean. Why not? I mean, they probably do that actually for the international broadcast. But yeah, the name on the back of the shirts, why not?
I'm pretty sure J League has their names in English. I'm not 100%. I mean, I know the J League kit that I have has it in English on the back, and it's not an ACL kit. But that's a touchy subject because obviously the Korean League should have a ton of Korean pride and Korean love in it, and that doesn't include player names. But again, if we're trying to market internationally, player names in English on the back would help international viewers and broadcasters. But that's a whole other thing. My thing right now for Room 101 is that the marketing departments for just about every single team, Jumbook, you get a pass. Jumbook, you're doing all right. Surprise, surprise. But it's just got to be better, and it just wouldn't take hardly anything at all because, like I said, so much of what's already made right now is in English. Anybody that follows me on Twitter sees all the Jun'em Dragons stuff that I'm putting out there. That's from their official channels. Obviously, I'm not designing this stuff for Jun'em Dragons. That'd be great. Dragons, if you need someone, let me know. But all that says like welcome to the Dragons or thank you, goodbye, all of these things in English. The player names are in English. Like it's 3/4 of the way there. Just get it over the finish line. It just kills me. Anyway, I went long. This is a ranting section. Are either of you going to dare disagree with me on this one?
No, I agree with you.
Nah, yeah, same here.
All right, we're just too agreeable today, but I do think we did pick things that it's like, yeah, get them out of here. Put those in Room 101. All right, so all three went into Room 101. Good. I think Bins has a much more controversial pick for this section that we'll bring back for the regular season, but I'll let him sit on that one. But that about does it for what worked and what didn't. But if folks would like to get involved, Paul, you have been doing a ton on Patreon lately.
Yes. First of all, I want to say thank you to our latest Patreons: Ian Plummer, Kevin Watkin, Julian Sandras, Chris Johnson, Andrew Delbridge. Is that any relation to Harrison Delbridge? I do wonder. Ostrix Mostre, and also welcome back to Jim Saunders. And of course, hello and thank you to all our other existing Patreons. Your support is genuinely greatly appreciated. Yes, I have been busy at the moment on there because I want to sort of make sure that we have enough content that you like to sort of make it feel like that what you are paying to us is worthwhile for you. So we do have regular transfer rumor updates. not every day, but depends how many rooms I do find. So there might be one up tomorrow. Daily K-League briefings. I will be doing one every day for that until the season begins. When the season begins, I'm not sure if I'll have time, but that's for now. All kinds of different articles on there, Saturdays and stuff like that, pub quiz questions. And we've got a lot of new ideas coming for the new year. So stay tuned for that. So if you want to sign up, we have tiers as low as $1. But the good stuff is from $3 and $5. And there's even a $10 tier, which we will have some kind of special incentive. Stay tuned for news on that in the coming weeks. But yeah, if you haven't signed up yet, then now is the time to do so.
Yeah, mailing is very difficult right now. We would like to get a 2021 version of the KLU kit. We'll see. Hopefully we can mail things internationally soon. But yeah, that's all sorts of things going on Patreon. And we'll also have a survey up there soon to see what people do and don't like. And we're going to start to tailor things in 2021 based on what you do and don't like. And speaking of 2021, if you want to listen to this podcast live, you can continue to do so on Football Nation Radio down in Australia. And as I say every week right now, especially while K-League is not in session, if you'd like to very easily stay up on an Asian league it's pretty entertaining. I always have fun watching A-League games here in Korea. They stream for free on YouTube. And if you want to dive in and know a little bit more about the league, Football Nation Radio is your place to go for that. All sorts of podcasts, interviews with players, everything going on down there. It's been really fun catching up on the league, and I'm going to have a split focus when K-League does resume, because it's been great watching games for free on YouTube with English commentary. It's all sorts of fun. But back to our podcast. If you subscribe wherever you download your podcast and leave us a review, you will be entered into this month's K-League kit contest, which is going on for just a little bit longer. It is a Suwon FC away shirt. It's up on the official K-League Twitter handle right now. You can view it there. It's from a couple of years ago. Suwon always does tremendous work with their kits. And this is another example of that. I'm excited to see what they come up with this year. But all you got to do is leave us a review and you will be entered into this month's contest. But in a full-on regular edition that was supposed to be a little bit shorter, I'm Ryan Walters for Paul Neat and Peter Hampshire. Thanks so much for listening.
Sangju Sangmu, Kim Shin